everybody. Hey, this is the Rig on Wheels show featuring MVT. So this is the first ever truck driving recruitment show. I am your host, Kameel Games, the CEO and founder of Rig on Wheels. And of course, this is our favorite VP of recruiting over there at Mesilla Valley. Robert Pierson. We are your ultimate destination when it comes to insights, trends, news, hot jobs, driver tips, and recruiter tips. So we are here for everything, and we answer a lot of your questions, and we're ready. So Pierson, we see you trying to make a habit of this being in El Paso, huh?
Well, I technically got into El Paso about 10:30 this morning, so I would not call it a trend just yet. I think you need more than a matter of hours before you can call it a trend. And in our industry, we're excited because we have the 10th Street Conference, which most drivers know. Ton of carriers use 10th Street. It is that go-to for about 1,100 carriers. Looking forward to being in Vegas and talking trucking.
Yes, I'm excited about it. We leave in a couple of hours, so that is for sure. So I am very excited about it. So let's jump right into our news here. Let's talk about diesel, because we got a little bit of a win. It dropped down just under $4. I guess that's exciting. It is $3.99.
Yeah.
But the least expensive is right there where MVT does most of everything in the Gulf Coast, and where MVT does nothing is the most expensive. So in Cali, well, almost does nothing, but in Cali and the West Coast, but across all 10 regions, it did drop. So that's good.
It's exciting to see that rate drop, even if it's a weekly basis. When you combine that with, we're starting to see the freight market become a little bit more robust. So if those two things can have a bit of an equilibrium, it will get excited. Now, obviously, the spot rates have impacted flatbed more here over the past couple of months as housing builds have gone up. But if you can have the freight rates go up while having the diesel prices slowly go down, that's a win-win. It's part of what makes me somewhat optimistic going into the second part of the year. We're still in a freight recession. It still stinks. With that said, though, I'm very thankful to see that drop 3.8 cents a gallon. That gets me really, really excited. The last time that we had a bunch of drops in fuel prices because the spot market was just plummeting. So it's nice to see the spot market actually creeping up in all three sectors. Mainly, though, in flatbed, and then a little more in dry van, and holding somewhat steady in reefer. But that $3.99, it's less than $4, gets me really excited.
Yep, definitely. Well, let's talk about some Debbie Downers that you brought up right before the show.
Well, there's a lot going on. One of the news stories that's making the rounds: Biden cracks down on diesel trucks to fight climate change, but it could destroy trucking. The objective right now out of the current administration is to get to zero emissions in the large truck and bus sectors by 2026. Most everybody except a tree hugger don't see how that's possible. Yeah. So outside of maybe the Keebler elves, I don't see how that's going to work. OIDA is going to fight it quite vigilantly. Most of the things that have been zero emissions are going to be really expensive, but the industry doesn't believe they can produce that many vehicles to begin with. So it's going to be interesting over the coming weeks. We got to figure out how much this is bluster going into the election cycle to appease a certain demographic. And then we got to figure out how much of this is actually going to get put into law. But if something gets put into law, there's a number of special interest groups that are going to fight on it. The biggest challenge is going to be for small fleets, and generally 76% of this industry are 5 or fewer trucks. They cannot afford a truck that would be $300,000.
And small fleets really start at 699 trucks. Mid-sized fleets are 700 trucks. So small fleets are 699. We talking about 5 trucks, that's micro size, but either way, there's going to need some type of government subsidy for that. But that's insane. that's literally taking a stake through the trucking industry's heart. And we already talking about a profit margin of this just to pay mortgage. So I don't know.
It's got people spooked. And then, of course, we talked right before we got on air here. Countless workers face layoffs, reduced hours, and California's outrageous new minimum wage law kicks. So this does not just impact fast food workers. It does in the here and now at this very moment. But this is part of what drives inflation. This is not,
right.
And I can tell you, most franchisees are not some huge corporate conglomerate. Most franchisees, just like trucking, is 76% 5 or fewer trucks. If you look at the franchisee industry, it's somewhat similar. Most franchisees of a McDonald's or Scooter's Coffee or Arby's generally are about 80% are 3 or fewer locations. These are not huge corporate overlords. These are often small mom and pop businesses that will eventually have to pass this price on to consumers. And there's a wave. So it first impacts the prices. And then there's a trickle effect that 6 months later, that raise doesn't feel like it existed anymore. But California has ever increasing costs. It's hard to do business. And it's one of the things to watch out is you're going to have people that lose jobs. So there's 500,000 people that this are impacted in California. The suspicion here is that the number of people are going to go down from 500,000 to about 300,000 over the next 12 months. So yes, those 300,000 people will make more money. It won't feel like it after 6 months, and 200,000 people will be finding work elsewhere.
It's terrible. I truly believe that a lot of this is just political, as far as just for people to vote for them.
Yep.
That's really what it is. And it's coming at a time, we need to vote for another president or others to take over and all of that. I'm just a bit over it, because at the end of the day, whether you're red or blue and what's the other color, green, at the end of the day, everybody needs to just put bread on the table. And at this rate, we're just going to be fighting each other. So
I will say
that's really what's going on.
Oh, there's at least some encouraging news. The Biden administration signed into law Senate Bill 992. This is starting the process of I-27, which is going to create another port of entry in Laredo. That excites us in particular with Mesilla Valley. We transport about 450 to 500 loads a day across the border between El Paso and Laredo. This is going to take a little bit of a while here, but the Port of Laredo's $320 billion in total trade last year made it the country's top port when ranked by trade value. With over 5.5 million annual truck crossings, the port is home to 660 trucking transportation companies, 250 freight forwarders, and 120 U.S. customs brokers. So the problem is there's always reasons why there's backups there and waiting on trailers and freight to come across. So that has us in particular excited. So I-27 is going to be one of those things to watch over the next 3 to 5 years, because if anybody has gone out of Laredo, the challenges is there's times where on both sides of the border, there's a major blockage, and there's multiple reasons why that could happen. That extra port of entry should hopefully relieve some of the traffic congestion out of I-7 off of the interstates down there. I believe it's I-69 that I'm thinking of, and I-35. So we're excited to see what comes of that, in particular for what we do, since we're so heavily invested into border crossings off of the U.S.-Mexican border.
That's good. At least we got some good news and some more entries for you coming in.
So I wanted to end it positively.
Yes, end yours positively. Well, I got some informational news, and it's not just for trucking, but because we were talking about small businesses, I do want to talk about LLCs and things like that when it comes to the small carriers. So, Kayla, if you can put up the first slide or the first photo, because what I want to get into is what we're calling. Let me pull it up here. What we're calling this here is hitting the books for trucking LLCs and the latest federal reporting law. So basically, this paperwork is called the beneficial ownership reports for all LLCs. But right now, I'm really concentrating on it when it comes to the trucking LLC. And I got these photos from transport topics. So it's required for basically the Federal Crimes Enforcement Network, which is part of the Fed Treasury. So under what we now call the company created, it's basically, let me back up. If your company was created or formed in the U.S., those are the ones that we're going to concentrate on. If it was formed in the U.S., it is a company or a corporation. And if your LLC is considered that, it's yes. And that's what a limited liability is. You're going to have to report to this industry, this report, or it's not a lot of information that you're going to have to report, but what it does is just opens up. They want to know who the owners, because before with LLCs, it basically, you didn't have to let people know you were the owner of the LLC. Okay. So now you have to let them know. If for some reason you are not doing it properly, it is a $500 fine for every day, up to imprisonment, or a $10,000 fine is the way that goes. Now, Kayla, you can go to the next slide. If it was created before 2024, then you have till January 1st, 2025. It was created after, then you have 90 days. Okay. And then also after, then you're also going to have to talk about your applicants. So that's basically everybody that is taking to form the LLC. Those is what they're calling the company applicants. It's not hard. The thing I did it for our LLCs, but what is needed is the name, date of birth, addresses, and IDs, and it can't be expired. So any of your IDs, whether it's your passport, driver's license, state IDs, but they can't be expired. It's pretty simple. You just go on their website, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. You go on their website. It's fairly self-explanatory. It's not hard at all, but it is something you want to do, and you want to do it sooner than later. You don't want to wait to the last minute. I will say that. That is not something you want to do. So go ahead, get those things taken care of. And I'm assuming if you have any questions, make sure you're contacting your CPA or your tax person, and they can help you walk through any of those things. But I do not want any of our small carriers to get in any trouble when it comes to that. So what I want to do is go to our first commercial. And when we come back, I want us to definitely go over what the month of April means, because we have definitely quite a few awarenesses that we want to talk about in April. So, of course, we want to go over Rig on Wheels' Faces of the Road 2024. So, for the month of April is your Arabic American Heritage Month, and it recognizes all achievements of our Arabic Americans. And if you see the vivid photo, and all of the trucks, so they are recognized here. You have your QR codes for us and all of the social medias right there. And we have the holidays, and of course, Pierson and I are definitely going to talk about in May is going to be the International Road Truck Week, which is concentrating on break and the drug and alcohol awareness for that week is what it's going to concentrate on. Pierson, did you want to talk about the next awareness for this month?
Well, we have autism, we have SAMS. What's SAMS stand for again there on that one? Because that one's I'm less familiar with.
Yes, so it's a big one for our industry. SAMS is the Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So the importance of that is we need to be definitely safe. And we'll talk about that a lot when it comes to MVT, because they have a lot of safety when it comes to women, respect, support within our industry. And we want to stand in solidarity with the survivors and advocate for prevention of sexual assault. So we want to discuss how carriers can help with that when it comes to the routes. That's why MVT is so close and dear to Rig on Wheels' heart, especially because of how their routes go. And it does depict a lot of safety thoughts when it comes to the drivers. So we definitely want to recognize SAMS for the Sexual Assault Awareness Month this month. And then, of course, for Autism Awareness Month.
Yeah, it's a number of topics out there that are good to be cognizant of. And you're absolutely correct on our end. With our focus on human trafficking gets into sexual assault, which is a big percentage of where human trafficking actually happens or why it happens. So we take it seriously as a carrier that moves about 450 to 500 loads across the border every day. Most of it comes through sexual exploitation as far as human trafficking goes. Is not people going to work in the fields. There's still a major problem with that in this country as well as other countries. But yeah, it's something to be cognizant of 12 months out of the year. But to put an extra focus on it becomes really important.
Yes, definitely. Absolutely. And so we want to recognize all of our awarenesses, and going forward, every top of the month, we must do that, focus on our awarenesses, all of that. We welcome any questions or anything that you want to discuss when it comes to that, because that definitely is our focus when it comes part of our focus on the show. So I think we should go ahead, jump into the hot jobs. Let's go to commercial, jump into hot jobs, and we'll take questions intermittently in between all of that great stuff.
Hello, everybody. I'm D'Anthony Davis. I'm a truck driver from Cleveland, Texas. I've been driving for 3.5 years now. I recently saw a podcast with Rig on Wheels on YouTube. I gave them a call. They was fast. They was efficient. They helped me out. I didn't really want to be over the road, so they got me a good regional job. And hey, you should give them a call.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Okay, so we got a couple of questions that Kayla sent to me via text. I think it was from YouTube. Yeah, that's the YouTube. Okay. So one person said, I was a CDL driver before I went to the military. I got out the military. I had kids, took care of them for the last 14 years. First of all, thank you for being in the military, your service. That's wonderful. 14 years. Wow. Why do companies not accept a driver without 3 years of employment? It is being a recent driver. So it is considered just recent driving history. It's like most industries, not just trucking. It's just recent experience is what it's considered. And I understand that you was a driver before you went into the military. If you still have your CDL, you can go to a truck driving school and get a refresher, depending on what company you work for when you have the refresher. Um, some would just take you back, mentor you, and you would be considered a trainee. Others would consider you a recent grad. So it depends on the company, and you go from there. So that wasn't your question, but I was going to the next question just in case you asked that question. But your question is, why do companies not accept drivers without 3 years experience? It's because they need recent experience. It's not just the trucking industry, it's any industry. They need recent experience. Pierson, it seems like you're right on the edge of your seat.
And so part of this varies from one company to the next. So it's not just 3 years. All companies are required by DOT regulations to verify what you did for the past 3 years, and then get as well as a full 10-year work history if that so applies. That doesn't often apply to a house husband or a housewife, recent young person that would have been in high school for a part of that 10 years, as an example. But carriers vary on how much experience they require. And the biggest factor in that generally revolves around safety and insurance providers. So when we have qualifications, it's not something thought about in thin air. There's risk management people that are involved with that, as well as finding an insurance provider that will cover you with the qualifications that you agree to. And trust me, if you have documented qualifications, you do not want to go against your insurance provider and go differently off of those. Your insurance provider at a certain point will go, hey, you're not following up. We're going to pull our insurance from you, and you're going to deal with some significant rate increases. So in the world of MVT, as an example, we would take recent graduates out of Dallas, Fort Worth, Laredo, Nashville, and El Paso if you are a recent graduate. If it's an experienced driver, quote unquote, it would be 6 months of experience in the last 12 months, 1 year of experience in the last year, or excuse me, let me re-say all this. 6 months in the last 12 months, 1 year in the last 3 years, or I can verify 3 years in the last 10. I'm generally able to accept that person's experience level, continuing on them having a safe and stable work history. The other part of that, though, from a military standpoint, it depends what your MOS, where your job is in the military, where I might be able to count that experience as your experience. So if you were in the military and you were an 88 Mike, as an example, there's a few other MOSs I can look at, but 88 Mike tends to be the most common one. That's transferable experience from the military that we can apply towards your experience in our industry as well.
Perfect. And then I'll get to that once I find out what platform they were on. And then this person asked a question that Pierson answered a little bit. So I'll kind of just bring it all together, and then I'll say, Pierson answered this a little bit. Anyway, just wondering, because I signed up for Swift and 2 other CDL beginning companies, they would not accept me with no employment. Okay, so let me back up again a bit. Swift is not a beginner company. It kind of irritates me just a little bit when drivers or other folk say that Swift, CR England, US Express, and some others are beginning companies. That would not be true. Swift is the largest trucking company in the United States of America. Night Swift, so we need to put some respect on their name. Drop the mic. Okay. Anyway, that was a lot. So, but and I'm not paid to say that. However, they will accept maybe certain things that other folks don't accept. Now, when you come to say no experience or no employment, it's a little bit more to that story to unpack. So it could be what Pierson was talking about. If you have not had employment in 3 years, you have to account for what you were doing in the last 3 years. Were you taking care of your elderly grandmother in the last 3 years? What was it? They can't have a large gap of unemployment per DOT regulation. Were you in prison? Then we have to talk about what are their requirements for criminal requirements. So it's a lot there to unpack. And that's more just diving in to know what your story is, because that question for you can be different than for 10 other people. So it's a little bit more there because you're not turned down for that reason. It's why for that reason, if that makes sense. Then Kayla had, sorry,
I will point out, so when we're putting together somebody's 10-year work history, one of the common questions is there's many reasons you can have a gap, but I have to account for that because at a certain point, we may be audited by the DOT. And the DOT may look, I've found 5 different files here where someone's not worked in the last 3 years. My suspicion is that you just didn't want to put in their information because there's only so many independently wealthy people in this industry. Now, there's a lot of reasons why you may be at home. I think Kameel pointed that out real well. You might be taking care of a sick relative. You may have had a medical issue. You may have done an early retirement and decided to come back out of retirement. There's a lot of reasons for that. But I can tell you that when we first get files in from drivers, there's a lot of gaps in their work history that we then have to work with the driver to go ahead and fill in those gaps. And trust me, it's not on our end that we necessarily want to do it. It's not, just like it's not fun for the driver, it's not fun for us either. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I have to be able to look at somebody that's auditing us from the DOT and go, this is this person's complete 10-year history, and here's the verifications of the past 3 years. Because without that, I'm going to eventually run into some trouble with insurance and the DOT.
Yeah, so as a third party, Pierson too, but I've never been Pierson in this life. But Pierson as well, but for us as third party, it's not that we're trying to be jerks, but literally we need your entire history to make things make sense. We have to build a picture for the clients, and our client is you as well as the trucking companies. And if we can't build a complete picture, then what they say is we have better candidates. The only way we can build the best picture is by putting everything down, crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's. And that's by asking you the appropriate questions and you giving us a full explanation as to what is going on. But yeah, let's stop saying that these trucking companies are beginning companies because they're not, because they take drivers that have 20 years experience, and that ain't no beginner. Yep. Pierson?
Yeah, and I will say one of the common things that we've seen in applications over the past year is anytime that you're going to put, I worked under the table or I got paid under the table. I've seen people claim to drive under the table. You start running down the pathway that's tax evasion. That's not something that you necessarily want to tell an employer. And it doesn't matter if you're applying at a trucking company or if you're applying at a data call center or even a McDonald's. Yeah. Literally, if you go, no, it's okay, I drove truck, but it was under the table. We get 2 to 3 of these a week right now. I can't count the experience, but then you don't count it with the IRS. Like those two things don't go together. And it's surprisingly a larger percentage of drivers we're seeing that now with. Well, they'll do local agricultural work where they can stay out of the way of the DOT and the log books because they're staying within a 150-mile radius, I can count that experience. But if it's not documented where you can show that you physically got paid and paid taxes on it, that experience hurts you in the long run. I get that it's nice that you're not having Uncle Sam take their part of it, but no one can count that experience. It's experience that, yes, we can say you did the job, but I literally can't do anything with it at that point because you start going down the pathway of tax evasion.
And so that's where your third party truck driving recruiter comes in. That's where your Deborah comes in. That's where your Nimmer comes in. And you're telling them these terms and they say, no, don't say that. We don't want to put that on the application because when it gets to MVT, they're going to say, we can't take John. John is not a qualified applicant. John is admitting to fraud. Fraud is not within our hiring requirements at this time. So there are things because you actually would have the documents that you worked for ABC Trucking Company. It's just other ways that to prove that you worked for them. You were a 1099 worker, things like that. But because you were so used to one terminology, this is what you wrote down, and we will advise you, don't put down fraud on your application unless you actually did commit fraud.
And it's one of the perks of working with Rig on Wheels is I have to look at things in a very black or white way, right, wrong, left, right. I have to literally look at things in a certain way. Where Deborah or any of the other team members there at Rig on Wheels are in a lot of ways your career consultant. If MVT has the best position available, they're going to send you to MVT. If XYZ has the best available position for where you're located and what you're looking for, they'll send you there. But the other part of that is advising you on, hey, this is how you fill this out. This is the information that the carrier is going to need. Because you don't want to have that awkward conversation once you get to the carrier level. Because at that point, the Rig on Wheels team can't help you. But in the beginning stages, because as a professional driver, you're not an expert on how to fill out an application, nor should you be. Your job is safely and efficiently moving freight. That's where getting with an expert that can physically help you with that career guidance becomes that unspoken benefit. Yes, Rig on Wheels ultimately is placing somebody someplace at the end of the day as far as generating revenue for the Rig on Wheels business. But part of that service is really that career advice of, hey, don't go down this pathway. You need to go down this pathway. It makes the job search significantly easier.
Yeah. We've had drivers that have said on an application that they lost control of the 18-wheeler. And I'll ask them, walk me through what happened. And as they walk me through what happened, and I'll say, on the ticket, did it say that you lost control? And they said, no, I just ran a stop sign. Did you have an accident? No. Why did you say you lost control? Well, that was just a term or a phrase that they knew. Lost control of an 18-wheeler is one of the worst things in life that you can do as a truck driver. So by saying that, that's huge. And right now, this isn't happening, but in sometime in the near future, you're going to have that down. And a key word like that is going to remove your application from the database. That is going to happen. Right now, it's not happening. So we're able to, Nimmer, Deborah, Keisha, they're able to look and say, no, that's not what you're telling me. This is not. Now, if on the ticket it says this, if a judge says this, then that's fine. But nobody said this. This is just a term you have in your head. No, we're going to correct this. Because once it gets to MVT, you're telling them that you lost control of your vehicle and now you're not qualified for the job. So that's some of the things that we consult with you as your recruiting consultant partner, because that's what we are. You're one of our clients as a driver. That's why I say that not just MVT is our client, you are, as a driver, you're our client as well. And we are here to make sure that you get a job. And that will definitely not get you a job.
No.
Immediately. So did you have something to say, Pierson?
I would tell any driver, you need to be very clear on definitions, both good and bad. So as an example, if you rolled the truck over, do not tell a recruiter that you laid the truck down. It's a rollover. There's no reason to be around it. You want to be forthright and honest. Hey, I have this, this, and this. If you have a jackknife, come out and say you had a jackknife. It's not necessarily a death nail. It will make things harder. But it's one of those things that you want to be transparent on from the beginning. And then you can have the advice from Rig on Wheels work you through that process. Less companies may take you, but if you're forthright, the worst thing for Kameel's team is to send you on a wild goose chase. They much rather go, hey, based off your needs, wants, and qualifications, carrier A is who's best for you. Now, I'm biased. I hope carrier A is MVT. But in the event that it's not, they will direct you to carrier B in that case and go, hey, this is your best fit. So the nice thing with Rig on Wheels is you don't have to put on a show or a presentation. Literally, just come out. This is what I have, both the good and the bad, and they will simplify that process down significantly.
Yeah, most definitely. And I get your comment. I didn't think you were being disrespectful when you were calling Swift a beginner. I just want us to know, because I do hear that quite a bit, and it's not just Swift or whatever, but I'm glad that you asked that question, because that is actually a really good question. So I'm very glad that you asked the question, because it was a great follow-up question to what the other person asked right before you. So that was really good. Pierson, let's jump right into the hot jobs, because those two folk was really good, because it was right on line with the hot jobs. It's like I paid them to ask those questions because it was job related.
Absolutely. Kayla, if you want to put up any map, I can start with the three options that we have available today. You pick which one comes first, and we'll go down the list. One of my favorite divisions, 110. We're looking for drivers out of the Albuquerque, DFW, and El Paso regions to run Division 110s. As you can see on the map here, a lot of east-west movements. So you never go really too far north. Run primarily the Colorado Front Range, and then a lot of east to west on that. Nice length of haul. Generally, length of haul is going to be 1,000 miles plus on it. Really nice division to get the MPG bonus that we talk about week in and week out here, averaging approximately $1,100 to $1,300 a week. The key here is you get weekly home time and some of the most carefree, easiest running lanes in the country. You'll see a lot of I-40, I-20, I-30, and occasionally I-25 when you make that north-south movement there. A lot of Southern California. So if you live out of Albuquerque, El Paso, or Dallas-Fort Worth, some of the easiest running areas in the country that you will find. Most of the people on this division for us point out to the fact that this is what they refer to as their stress-free division. So very popular. Kayla, do you want to go to the next one? Well, let's go to Division 400. If you live out of the Nashville area, we run to our version of the Northeast. Our version of the Northeast might be barely upstate New York, like Ithaca, central Pennsylvania, southern New Jersey, back down into the Tennessee Valley area. Our folks on this one are running primarily about $85,000 to $95,000 a year when it's all said and done on this division, a popular division for approximately 40 drivers that we actively have doing this at this moment. As you see there on the map, the average weekly earning is $1,740. There's also a productivity bonus that we can talk about. So when you get in with us, that ranges from 2 to 5 cents a mile based off the amount of miles ran. Plenty of freight available on this division to hit that quota every single month, and it's done monthly. So if you are on time with all your deliveries, on time leaving the house, no tickets, no accident, you'll hit that bonus for the month. So one of the fun things to talk about that division. So like I said, averaging about $85,000 to $95,000 a year. And then lastly, let's talk about our third division that we want to point out too for those folks living in Jacksonville, Florida. We're looking at Division 430. This is another one of those attractive divisions from a stress-free environment and weather adverse. Division 430 runs out of Jacksonville towards Houston and Laredo, ultimately coming right back home. You're out 5 to 7 days. A lot of drop and hook, a lot of running on I-10 and I-69. So you're going to see a lot of, you're not going to have to deal with winter weather like snow and ice. You're not going to deal a lot with tornadoes or anything like that. And the big part of this entire run that you'll hit traffic generally revolves around Houston, which good pre-planning can help you to get around the Houston traffic that can build up 2 or 3 times a day, depending on when you're going through there. Drivers on this are averaging about $1,100 to $1,300 a week. Like I said, majority drop and hook. Biggest customer on this account is Lowe's. We have a great relationship with Lowe's out of Valdosta, Georgia, as well as about 40% of the freight being made up of other direct customers, not broker freight. And so we're always looking for solo drivers, but we'll also take teams out of Jacksonville. The teams tend to be closer to that $1,400 to $1,600 a week range per team member. So keep that in mind as we go here with a full 2 days at home. A secure drop yard right there in Jacksonville as well. So give us a call on any of those positions, Division 400, 430, or Division 110 at 281-968-3100. And Kameel's friendly recruiters will work with you and get you into the process to work with MVT.
Absolutely. And if you want to go directly to the website, you can go to rigonwheels.com. It's a tab and you just click on there and it'll take you directly to the Intella app. You fill it out completely and they'll give you a call and go through the application with you and get you started with everything. So, and Pierson and I are going to the 10th Street Conference. So next week when we get back, we'll have even more good 10th Street and Intella application goodies. So to bring back for our drivers. So that's a lot of good stuff. MVT has other jobs available. Those are, like we say all the time, those are the hot jobs that we have more available. Pierson's favorite division is 110 and mine is the 430 right there in that Gulf Coast with the good diesel. Yep. So definitely give us a call or go directly to the website. Either one that fits your fancy, we'll be ready and able to help you out. So with saying that, let's go ahead and go to commercial. Let's go to commercial with the handsome guy talking about how he won the car because of great diesel practices.
Mi nombre es Carlos Vázquez, tengo trabajando 3 años aproximadamente y somos B1 y andamos en territorio de Estados Unidos. Lo que me gusta de MVT es que tiene buenos viajes, buenos camiones y muy buenas millas. Mi comunicación con el despacho es muy buena y todo eso y siempre están a la orden del día. ¿Qué pienso del equipo de los camiones? Pues que están muy bien y les dan sus mantenimientos, sus PO y todo lo demás, alineación y balanceo, todo, cambio de llantas y excelente servicio. La compañía cada trimestre regala un auto para los operadores. Me motiva pues a crecer más como persona y pues, para dar el 100, como dicen, para la compañía.
Welcome back. So we want Pierson to go over all that information where they win everything and then that wall of diesel where they know their rankings.
And that's a picture that we ought to post on here just from a future standpoint. We ought to just go ahead and post it on there so they can see what we're talking about. But absolutely. We really focus on MPGs here at Mesilla Valley Transportation. So in an industry that averages about 6 to 7 miles a gallon, we tend to average about 9 to 10 miles a gallon as a collective fleet. It is not luck that does that. And the biggest factor in that is our driver behavioral patterns on the road that ultimately make that huge difference as far as our fuel economy. And we reward our drivers for it. Beyond just having some additional fuel saving bonuses out there and getting to speed up your truck as your fuel economy gets better, we also reward whoever has the best fuel economy with a quarter with a brand new car. We do it at a quarterly driver appreciation events that we hold in Nashville, Denver, Laredo, and El Paso. So every quarter we give away a brand new car to whoever has the best MPG bonus. Most recently, that would have been out of El Paso. The quarter before that, Laredo, and then again El Paso with the team that we had. That new car is generally a 2022 or 2023 Nissan Sonata. It is not the base model, so it is a very nice, fully accessorized vehicle. And then whoever has the best MPG bonus for the entire year will end up getting a $25,000 bonus. We have an individual named Roberto Sandoval that over his 20-year career at MVT has actually won that 5 different times, plus referred and trained and ultimately worked with 2 people that he brought to the company who have also won that award under his mentorship. And so it's a good way to recognize our drivers. The nice thing is, as a driver, you know where you are versus your peers. So on your in-cab communications, after about a week into the quarter, you can see where you are as far as fuel economy, as well as where you are versus your peers. And you can always go into any of the terminals where it's updated every Monday, and you literally can go to the grill here in El Paso and physically walk over and go, I'm number 26. How do I get higher? Well, you work with your fleet manager as well as a department called Driver Services. And strategically, we look at areas that you're able to get better fuel economy. Last quarter, it was 12.6 miles a gallon, but we're interested to see if someone's going to be able to top that 13 miles per gallon. That's the big challenge right now in the fleet. And your fleet manager has a lot of incentive to work with you, as well as Penske and the folks that we work with in the Driver Services department to get you to that top of the list for bragging rights as well.
Sounds good. And we are definitely going to get that leaderboard. So the next on Tuesday, everybody can see why I'm always so excited and I don't have to do this whole thing like I'm some robot or something like that. And everybody
like
think I'm crazy. Yes. And everybody, you all will be all excited about it as well. So definitely. But what we want to do is take a few more questions from Kayla's side of the house before we kind of close up shop here. So Kayla.
All right. What does safety mean to you at MVT?
It is the center of our universe, where trucking companies have 7 categories of CSA scores. We too do that, but we have 0 categories above threshold. What that means to you is you save time by not having to go through as many of the weigh scales, which can eat up anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes of your day every time you stop at one. It means that we have access to customers that ultimately want to work with a safe carrier that has on-time delivery performance, as well as their freight getting there in one piece. And most importantly, it puts us in the wheelhouse to work with safer drivers. Most safe drivers do not want to go to a carrier that literally puts them in danger. So we make sure that we have late model equipment. We make sure that we have reliable equipment that's well maintained. And we make sure our drivers have training opportunities so they can continue to progress and get better at their career. Because what you do today may be different 10, 15 years from now within MVT. So we look at safety as not just a battle this week, but over your entire career with MVT.
And let me say this too. Driving for a safe carrier means more money for you as a driver. Carriers that have good safety scores mean that they have more opportunities than carriers that don't, because first of all, they have more profits. That means that they have the better equipment. They're able to have the better training. They're able to pay their drivers better. First of all, they're not being eyed by the DOT officer as, oh, we know we can get them. So things like that. So safety for a company equals profits, and safety for a driver equals more money.
I will also point out we had the due to their CSA scores, we had a carrier last week closed down in the Midwest, about 400 trucks. And if you're a driver, you do not want that stink on you. You do not want to be having to look for a job after you've been with a carrier that literally got closed down for their safety. It will make your career ambitions very difficult to reach for quite a while. And so that's part of your selection process when you look at a carrier. If you are a safe driver, if you have a clean PSP report or an MVR, you definitely want to be asking and looking for information on the carrier's safety performance, because you will carry that stink with you if you go to the wrong place.
Yeah, most definitely. That's a very, very good question. Good question. So I love that.
All right. Great answer. My next question is about retirement plans. Can you elaborate on what retirement plans you offer?
Yep. We have a 401k plan. It's the package that I'm in is the exact same package that's offered to our driver base. You can invest up to 6% of your salary into it. We have a company match up to that same point. It vests after 12 months. And so it's a retirement plan that's built around where you are in life. So as an example, how you invest that 401k as a 25-year-old is significantly different than if you're investing into your 401k and you're 60 years old. So there's about 8 different plans that you can go into that both look at where you are in life, how aggressive you want to be with your investment dollars. The key thing that I will tell anybody is if you're going to a carrier and you plan to stay there for a good while, that 401k pays for itself. You don't have to watch the stocks every day. The company is matching up to 6% of your salary on that. So even if stock stayed stagnant over the years, you'd still double your money. But the nice thing with it, and I always advise people, a lot of times we don't start thinking about retirement until we get to about 45, 50 years old. If you're in your 20s or in your 30s, that 401k, you need to get familiar with the term compounding interest. It's how you basically are putting $100 every check into that 401k. And by the end, when you get to your retirement, you have $1 million in there. And the key term is compounding interest. Basically is when you go in there, it's not for just people that are getting near retirement, but it's a really important thing. Same package I'm on. So the executives all the way to the security guard shack to the drivers are all in the same plan. And it really can be customized to where you are in life. It's something that's worth doing, and the company match up to 6% makes it foolish not to do it. It is something that you will grow money in it just because the company is matching your funds.
Awesome. My next question is, do you have dedicated dispatchers or dedicated teams that handle drivers, or is a driver always going to have a different point of contact?
Yeah, so you have both a dedicated dispatcher slash fleet manager, but they all fit under the same division. So as an example, when we talked about hot jobs, if you go into division 430, we have a guy named Ivan, and Ivan is everything 430. Now he reports to a larger person that oversees multiple divisions, but he is locked into 430. So he has a relationship with the direct customers that we have for that division, as well as all the drivers within it. The nice thing on our end is, unlike some carriers that try to stick 80 to 100 drivers on one fleet manager, where literally they can only communicate with you in cab communication wise because they just simply have too many drivers. So the industry average right now is about 75 drivers to every fleet managers. Our average is about 40 to 1. That 40 to 1 offers us the opportunity to have a little more one-on-one. So we will use the in-cab communication. We'll use text messaging. If a driver wanted to communicate via smoke signals, we'll find a way to do it. But on the flip side of it, if you need to have that physical conversation, it's really important that you're able to have a longer conversation, because not everything can be solved with a text message over the in-cab communication system. That allows us to do it because of that lower driver to fleet manager ratio that we have compared to our peers. The other part of that equation, though, is your fleet manager is generally going to want to meet with you. So we send you to an orientation location where you're most likely to meet your fleet manager face to face. We believe that face-to-face interaction is really important because it really creates accountability. When you look somebody square in the eye and say, hey, this is how we operate, this is how I'm going to work, this is how you're going to work, you end up creating a lot more in the way of accountability with each other. And this is not like some carriers. I've heard of some carriers where if you want to meet your fleet manager, it's not going to happen unless it's past bulletproof glass. You'll physically be able to meet your fleet manager, sit at their desk, and have a conversation upon completing orientation.
That bulletproof glass thing just cracked me up. So
I'm not going to name names.
Right. And I'm about to say, I bet you that's the truth. So I got a driver that just emailed me. He's watching a show and he just emailed me, and it's really detailed, but I know it's some other things that's left out. So I forwarded the email to Deborah, so she will really call to unpack a lot more of this. But I know we have a lot of drivers that are in this situation. But basically, he said, my name, I'm not going to say his whole name, but my name is D, and I'm reaching out to find a CDL job. He graduated from an accredited school, but the problem is he's on probation, and about 20 companies told him so far everything looks good until he gets to let him know that he made a mistake when he was 17 years old back in 2020. That's not him anymore. Okay, so the first thing we do is, I'm a pen and paper person, and I tell all the recruiters to be a pen and paper person as well. What were you about to say, Pierson?
Hey, Kameel, did he say that how old was he in 2020? 17?
17. So that was about to say, okay. Pen and paper. So 17, he was 17 then. That was 2020. It's 2024 now, and it's only the beginning of 2024. So more than likely, you are only what's that, 21 years old, 20? He's 20 years old, right?
At most 21, at most.
Yeah, at most 21 years old, but yeah. So you're 21 years old. You have some companies that take you at 21, but you have some companies that take you at 23. So that's the one thing. Then, depending on what your crime was, but the severity. So are you do you have a felony on your jacket, or is it a misdemeanor? What was the felony? Was it drugs? Was it possession? Was it trafficking? Was it smuggling? Okay, those are all three different things. Then was it a sex crime? Okay, then you're on probation. Do you have movement? Don't you have movement? So even though you said it was in 2020, 2020 was not that long ago. It wasn't even 4 years ago, more than likely, unless it was March, January, February, or March. If it was in May, it hasn't even been 4 years yet. I can appreciate that you're not that person anymore, and I definitely congratulate you on that. However, that's still a very recent crime, and we don't know what the crime is, and you have not disclosed it in this email. So that's part of what we're talking about in trucking, is not being communicative. So write in the email, I definitely want to commend that, but not telling me those things isn't going to work. Also, you're probably only 20 years old. You're probably not 21 yet. So most companies won't even take you as of yet. So unless you were born January, February, or March, you're not even 21, which means you're not even qualified yet at all. And this is literally how at Rig on Wheels we do that. We put a pen and paper and write it down as if it's a math problem. That's what we write it down as, a math problem. We write, and then we try to see who we can match you with from there. So that's that way. And when you say everything is all good with about 20 companies, just because the companies are listening to you doesn't mean it's all good. They're just literally listening to you to try to see what it is you're saying. But based on the fact that you did not disclose whatever the felony is, it sounds like it's a heavy, heavy felony.
I will say this too, and this is the hard part from a legal standpoint, is most trucking companies, because of ban the box and some other laws that exist out there, are going to tell you you're free to apply. So when you say that you have these things, they will not tell you over the phone you are not qualified. In most cases, they will say you're free to apply. That could mean that, yep, everything's good, apply, and we'll go ahead and look at it on a case-by-case basis. It may mean that they're going to have you apply, but they legally are not in a position to tell you that they can't hire you at that point, because it puts them in a position of liability. I will tell you, as a general rule of thumb, like Kameel was talking about, if it's a felony that's a sign of aggression, that generally can be something that carriers will shy away from. Murder, assault, if it's a sex crime, somebody that a statutory rape, any type of rape or sexual assault charge is going to put you in that category. If it's something that's a repeatable offense, so if it's not just one issue, but it shows a possible habit, carriers will revolve around that. And then, like us, if it's human trafficking, again, I do 500 cross-border moves a day. It is a PR nightmare to hire somebody that gets in trouble theoretically for trafficking somebody when it was already in their background. We'd get taken to the woodshed on it, and probably rightfully so. I wish everybody the best. We always have to have, we have a high rate of recidivism in this country, where people go in and out of the jail system. So I think it's really important for felons to find their way back into society where they can make a living. But all carriers take on a certain level of risk with every driver that they hire. I will say a PO letter is not necessarily a hindrance. And when you get a PO letter, it's really important that the PO officer specify that you're able to leave the state. Because if you're not able to leave the state, that PO letter is going to make it very difficult to find a job. And occasionally you'll have parole officers that will ask for things that carriers cannot do, such as, can you tell me where this person's going to be on this day, and this day? In the world of trucking, we do not necessarily know that. We don't. So one of the things to do when you work with a parole officer is be very honest with them. I'm looking to run over the road, multi-state with a trucking company. If you say that up front, they will generally understand what you need to write out and what permissions you're asking for. Where if you're somewhat vague, going to work for a trucking company, they don't know what that means. That they think you're probably making deliveries at convenience stores around your city. So be somewhat specific on that end so that they can give you a PO letter that most companies can work with. In your case here too, like I said, the legal age at most of these places is going to be 21 years of age. Some carriers are going to be 23 years of age. So a lot of that gets a little confusing. This is, again, where Rig on Wheels can help, because they kind of have access to this multiple ways, where if you go through a different company or you go on your own, you got a lot of outbound calls ahead of you.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, I forwarded that email to Deborah so she can kind of unpack that a little bit more and go from there. So again, it has come to a close for us. We hate to go, but we will see you guys next Tuesday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. Pierson will be right here in our new location. Rig on Wheels has moved headquarters from Houston to Spring, Texas, which is right down the road, 25 minutes. Such a long drive, right? But anyway, so he'll be right here, and we'll see you guys next week, Tuesday at 3 p.m. Be safe. Think safety first. And bye-bye.